Hola, and hello, and welcome to the James Brown program, Media Studies, live. Thanks for joining me. I, of course, am James Brown. We're a good bit after high noon on a Saturday, but things got a little bit complicated with me. I cut my finger. If you're watching this live, you can see my finger band-aid, a band-aid wrap, two band-aids around my gigantic finger. I bought some Italian bread not long ago at this great place called Rubino's for you fellow Rochesterians. And then I came home, I chopped it, and I chopped off a chunk of my finger. Thankfully, the bleeding, I think, has stopped. But if it hasn't, hopefully it will at some point soon. But I'm a trooper, so I'm gonna keep going. There's a couple of things I want to get into. I think there are three different stories going on from the last couple of weeks or so of media world, and I think they're all interrelated. We'll get into Pat McAfee's visit to All the Smoke. I thought that was fascinating. There's a chunk of that, especially, that I think says a lot about where we are in terms of media. We also will get into the demise of Vice. It's something that I have been passionate about for a very long time. Vice. At one point, I would have said it was a dream job for me to work for Vice, and now it's pretty much no more. And I want to talk about some of the minutiae about how we got there and some of the things that are sort of glossed over. We could talk about the tone of the content. The tone of the content has always been sort of different. For example, I'd say that it was never totally, I'd say, the norm, but we'll get there. But first, I want to ask an interesting question. A question that I think needs to be first posited by our friend Lex Fridman. He interviewed Tucker Carlson, and when there's a controversial interview, people have a lot of opinions, a lot of thoughts about it and what goes on with it. And generally, the interview themselves, they're inconsequential. And this is why I feel this way. I feel that however you see it, it's very rare that a controversial interview will happen, and we will have our minds blown by what the content of the interview itself. We will walk in with our own point of view on whatever the interview is, and walk out with that point of view. It will either frustrate us and anger us, or we'll find it comforting, and we'll love it. I think that's exactly what happened with Tucker and Lex. I found lots of elements of it interesting, but not all that mind-blowing. But I'd like to share with you the most interesting element of that episode, at least from my perspective. And that was his preamble, Lex's preamble. And then once we get there, we can go beyond.
Please allow me to say a few words about the very fact that I did this interview. I have received a lot of criticism, publicly and privately, when I announced that I will be talking with Tucker. For people who think I shouldn't do the conversation with Tucker, or generally think that there are certain people I should never talk to, I'm sorry, but I disagree. I will talk to everyone, as long as they're willing to talk genuinely in long form for 2, 3, 4 or more hours. I will talk to Putin and to Zelensky, to Trump and to Biden, to Tucker and to Jon Stewart, AOC, Obama, and many more people with very different views on the world. I want to understand people and ideas.
I think that preamble Well, and I'll go back about 10 seconds here.
And to Jon Stewart, AOC, Obama, and many more people with very different views on the world. I want to understand people and ideas.
This is part of what I love about the Lex Fridman podcast, even going back to back in the day when it was the artificial intelligence podcast. And it's the thing that I loved back in the day about people like Larry King, about people like Charlie Rose, people like Tavis Smiley, old guard interviewers who saw their interviews as explorations. They wanted to understand the person that they're talking to. They didn't just want to stop for an opinion or point of view. They wanted to actually understand where the person who the person they were talking to are, how their opinions are formed, where their what's their worldview, and through that you walk away from their shows with a greater understanding of why they do the things they do. Not just, hey, who the fuck are you? No. There was a gentlemanly nature of previous generations of interviewers that aren't available now. Most interviews today are, how should I say, they're confrontational, or they're only talking to people in which they, on some level, agree with, or at least they share some narrative acts. We're not seeing people try to understand where someone with a different perspective comes from. Lex Fridman, in this interview in particular, Lex is a giant Jon Stewart fan. Jon Stewart gave Tucker Carlson one of the more embarrassing moments of his professional career. And they talk at length about Tucker's feelings about Jon Stewart's place in culture, and Jon Stewart's critiques of Tucker back 20 years ago and today. And I thought it was all fascinating stuff. And Lex was able to get this out of a person that he doesn't necessarily agree with. So I found that truly fascinating. And when you get moments like this, is when you are willing to talk to somebody who you don't agree with. You're willing to sit down with someone who you think, hey, you're probably wrong. And the fact that we're less likely to do this, it makes people like Lex doing the things that he does all the more important. We'll have more of his statement here.
That's what long form conversations are supposed to be all about. Now, for people who criticize me for not asking tough questions, I hear you. But again, I disagree. I do often ask tough questions, but I try to do it in a way that doesn't shut down the other person, putting them into a defensive state where they give only shallow talking points.
That's another key point that he got into there. Look, we often, as interviewers, I've conducted many interviews on this show in a different stops in my career. And at different stops in my career. Broadcasting at 2x speed. Okay. On different stops in my career, I have conducted many interviews. And my goal with these interviews is not to it's to gather a sense of understanding. It's not necessarily to piss off the person I'm talking to. Not that sometimes it's necessary, but it's not my goal. Not goal number one. Goal number one is to anger the person The goal number one is to get the person to open up and share part of them and share their perspective. And you can do that in a long form sense by simply opening up and understanding that, hey, I'm operating with faith. And I think that's what Lex is getting across there.
Instead, I'm looking always for the expression of genuinely held ideas and the deep roots of those ideas. When done well, this gives us a chance to really hear out the guest and to begin to understand what and how they think. And I trust the intelligence of you, the listener, to make up your own mind, to see through the bullshit, to the degree there's bullshit, and to see to the heart of the person. Sometimes I fail at this, but I'll continue working my ass off to improve. All that said, I find that this no tough questions criticism often happens when the guest is a person the listener simply hates and wants to see them grilled into embarrassment, called a liar, a greedy egomaniac, a killer, maybe even an evil human being, and so on.
This is a very interesting point that Lex brings up here. We don't hear right-wing critics of right-wing interviewers claiming that they are not asking right-wing folks hard questions. We don't hear left-wing critics of left-wing interviewers asking that, or claiming that they're not asking hard questions. I think what happens today, and today more than ever, not always, but today more than ever, is that criticism has become a partisan act. It's not simply, hey, your conversation is good or your conversation is bad, your style is good or your style is bad, or talking about the quality of the video or the sound or the interaction. What you get is a political critique instead of a quality critique. Now, this is a troubling element of how we approach criticism in media overall. Because it's not about how good or how bad the interaction is, or how good or how bad the content is. What it is where I am on the political spectrum. And where I am on the political spectrum allows me to levy a harsh critique and to have people with power be able to apply this where I'm giving clearance to people with power to come down hard. To come down hard on everyone else. I just got a text that I'm not coming in clearly here. Give me a moment here. Let me take a look. Yeah, I'm not understanding why I'm garbled at the moment. It sort of sounds good in my ear. Thank you for sticking with me. No wonder so many of you bounced away at this point. Let me switch up my microphone. How do I sound now? Do I sound better now? not sure why I am garbled. That's really disappointing. Okay. Let me work on this. And I'll apparently I'm having some technical difficulties. I will get back to you. I'm not sure. This is doing this at the moment. I'm a little garbled. That's very, very weird. Okay, so I'm going to. I'll be